successful defence of their constructors' title and second and third in the drivers' standings, but the team definitely lost ground to its competitors from mid-season onwards. With the team reportedly still courting Jones to reverse his retirement, Carlos Reutemann might well be feeling somewhat unwanted. In any case, they will need to work hard over the winter to make sure they're in a position to continue challenging come the new season, whoever ends up behind the wheel. It's hard to believe Tyrrell were race winners 3 years ago and regular podium visitors just the year before last in 1979. No Works Tyrrell had ever failed to qualify before 1981, and this year they managed it 4 times, once each for Kogan and Cheever and twice for Alboreto. Fast Eddie made the best of a bad job, but he's on his way to Ligier for 1982, and Ken Tyrrell will be relying on his legendary acumen to find a worthy replacement. In the circumstances, it's difficult to assess rookie Alboreto. Arriving as a pay driver, clearly Ken saw something in him that was worth keeping on. Solid season for Eccleston & Co, taking the driver's title for Piquet, largely through being able to reliably finish well. If both cars had scored more often, the team would have put up much more of a challenge in the constructors' race. Rebacke proved a good racer, often climbing up the order well during races, but his inability to qualify well prevented him from doing better, perhaps not helped by living at home in Mexico and commuting to Europe for races. Piquet nearly threw the title away with a series of unforced errors in mid-season, and they'll need to work on this next year. Interesting times ahead, as Brabham have been working on a new turbo engine with BMW for most of 1981 and will be hoping to make waves with it in 1982. A dire start to the year with the ageing M29 chassis, but when the carbon fibre MP41 arrived it made an immediate difference, and John Watson was able to use it to take a popular win at Silverstone and a hatful of podium places. They still lack grunt on the straights though, and rumours say that Porsche are working with them on another turbo project. Shortly after the end of the season, McLaren revealed the worst-kept secret in Formula 1. Niki Lauda would be returning in 1982 to partner John Watson, but how will his 2 years break over a period of great technological change in the sport have affected his competitiveness? Another pretty ordinary year for the little West German team, though things picked up a little with a new car as the season went on, with Borgard proving unexpectedly competitive and usually qualifying, even if the car lacked the reliability to finish most of the time. At least they managed a point at Silverstone, though it seems scant reward for their efforts. The saga of the Lotus 88 was an unwelcome distraction early on, but when the Compromise 87 chassis arrived, it enabled Elio and Nigel to climb up the order. De Angelis was a regular visitor to the lower points finishers, while Mansell showed he had talent with his third place in Belgium and a fine drive in Caesar's Palace, but also proved more erratic and retired more often. Both drivers are kept on for next year. The season started brightly for Ensign, with 4th place for Mark Seurer in the season opener, but it was a false dawn, and Mo Nunn's little team were always struggling for cash. It was economic forces that forced the talented Seurer out in favour of the better-funded Salazar, but even so they only failed to qualify once all year, and even Eliseo got on the scoreboard twice to give their team the best ever points haul. As so often over the last few years, reliability was Renault's Achilles heel. In particular, the team struggled early on, with Prost's 3rd place in Argentina the team's only points in the first half of the season. From mid-season on, though, they came through as a real challenger, though poor René Arnoux couldn't seem to buy a break, always qualifying well but having the lion's share of the technical gremlins or being punted off by other drivers. The team are hoping to hit the ground running in 1982 with an unchanged lineup and challenge for the titles, though rumours suggest Arnoux and Prost have fallen out somewhat. Pretty dreadful comeback season for the March outfit, who can't have expected it to be this difficult. After Salazar departed, the decision to stick to one car and concentrate on Derek Daly turned out to be the right one, and he qualified for every race except Caesar's Palace after that. Still no points, however, despite Daly's heroics in Canada and at Silverstone, and it's a question of sponsorship for 1982. After such a dire year, can they maintain funding? A season of 2 halves for the UK-based Brazilian team. No points, but the cars looked lively enough early on, qualifying in midfield and sometimes running in the points until the inevitable breakdown. The wheels came off mid-season, with the team barely qualifying after the halfway point and missing Austria entirely due to lack of engines. Once again, money is the problem, and many didn't expect them to see out the season. Whether they will return for 1982 remains to be seen. Given the almost limited resources at their disposal, Alfa Romeo have to be disappointed with their poor showing. The season was bookended with good results, with Mario Andretti's home 4th place in Long Beach, his only points finish of the year, and Giacomelli's first career podium in Las Vegas. Apart from that, it was a litany of retirements, midfield scrapping and general mediocrity. It seems likely that Mario Andretti will be hanging up his helmet as far as F1 goes, though his IndyCar career continues, and if so, it's a shame that the 1978 champion's career ends on a damp squib. Another team with a bad start to the season followed by a late rally, with Lafitte's brace of wins and 5 podium places in the second half of the season making him an unlikely title contender right up until the last race of the year. However, the 3 occupants of car 25 didn't finish a single race between them all year, and the team will hope that Eddie Cheever can do better for them next year. Villeneuve's wins in Monaco and Spain flattered to deceive, as the prancing horse endured another pretty dreadful year. The powerful engine meant they were usually somewhere in the points, but the chassis handled so badly that it was more often seen holding up a queue of traffic, driving away from them on the straights and then bunching up again in the corners. Villeneuve's gutsy driving, exemplified by his home race in Canada, pleased the fans, while Pironi seemed to struggle more with the car. If Ferrari are to stop the rot, they need a new chassis soon. Like other small teams, Arrows had a good start to the season, with pole position in Long Beach and podium finishes, but after the accident in Belgium, which could have killed mechanic Dave Luckett, the wind seemed to go out of their sails, exacerbated by the usual problems of funding. Patrese still usually qualified well, but the team didn't score a single point post-Belgium. With Ricciardo now on his way to Brabham, Arrows will need to find a new driver who can make the most of their limited equipment. The little Italian team's sophomore season was incredibly tough, with the death of mechanic Giovanni Amadeo and the injuries to driver Miguel Angel Guerra. Things picked up later in the season with the arrival of Jean-Pierre Jarier, who usually qualified well and utterly showed up a demoralised Beppe Gabbiani. The team go into 1982 still searching for that elusive first point, and having had 5 drivers over the course of 1981, will also maybe hope for a little more consistency. A point on the new team's debut was promising, and they usually qualified and had finished all but 3 of the races they started. They fell on their feet with the availability of Marc Surer too, who proved a good pair of hands in the latter half of the season. A good base to build from, but as ever it will come down to funding as to how they do in the future. Proof positive that tearing it up in Formula 2 doesn't necessarily translate to Formula 1 success. The team were expecting it to be a hard building year, but probably expected to do a bit better than this. The TG181 chassis is apparently nicknamed The Pig, which says a lot, but at least Henton and Warwick managed to qualify once each, and the team made a lot of friends in the paddock with their easygoing attitude.